name is Kim and this is Meagan, and
Hello.
we are debating against same-sex education. Separating students into single-sex classrooms is not as beneficial as it may seem. There's often bullying amongst students, there's financial implications for the families and the school itself. The social limitations in regards to students graduating and joining the mixed-gender real world are very real. Educating the single sexes in the classroom offers no improvement to academics, and during the next 10 minutes, Meagan and I will show you why we believe that single-sex education is detrimental through our forming points. Personally, I don't feel that it's a good idea.
Is that it?
Great.
That was not what I wanted.
That was in 2 minutes.
I added jazz hands.
Doesn't have to be exactly.
Through our debate, we will demonstrate to you why single-sex classes benefit as a group and the individual itself. We will show you the advantages for both males and females involved in these programs, and why it would be to everyone's best interest to follow the examples set by other organizations and nations.
That's it.
Do you want to do the points first?
Okay.
Okay, so, my 2 points. The same-sex education creates social limitations when students graduate and join the mixed-gender world. Students are more likely to accept gender stereotypes after they have been in single-sex classroom settings. Children are more likely to express stereotypical views of what activities boys and girls should be doing. An inability to work with the opposite gender is created because they are never given the chance to interact with students of the opposite sex while they're in school, so they don't develop the skills necessary to do so. By being separated, less sympathy and comprehension occurs towards the opposite sex, which leads to greater gender discrimination. And girls don't just develop their masculine side, and males don't develop their feminine side, which leads to confusion and lack of understanding. As for educational benefits, there aren't any. Girls perform just as well in single-sex classrooms as they do in mixed-sex classrooms. It's all dependent on the setting. If you have a good teacher and a good classroom learning setting, then they're going to do better regardless of who their peers are. Over 85% of students in a study showed that it was just the setting, it wasn't actually their peers that were the determining factor of better grades. Those that are accepted into single-sex institutions are already academically advanced, so while it seems like it's the classroom setting that's affecting the grades, it's really not. It's just the fact that they were already very smart to begin with.
Yeah. So we've also done some research around bullying in same-sex schools. So according to the Journal of American Medical Association, males are more likely than females to be both the perpetrators and the targets of bullying. So you can imagine what that does to a school that's just filled with males, or a class that's just filled with males. It'd be a high testosterone, macho environment. So you can imagine if you were, say, gay or transgender or bisexual, what kind of impact that would have on your life. According to the No Bullying organization, 9 out of 10 LGBT youths are reportedly verbally and physically abused at some point during their education. So, and that's taken out of a co-educational classroom context. So you can imagine what it would be if it was a same-sex classroom. I personally have attended both co-educational and all-girls schools, and I found that contrary to what most people believe, where if you're in an all-girls class, there are less distractions for you because there aren't any boys in your class, I found that actually, on the contrary, girls, when they're in large groups, they seem to be socially exclusive and really quite cliquey, and that was personally traumatizing if you had to go through it. So I found that I had a better experience and a better social and learning experience when I was actually in the co-educational school. The financial implications of for institutions implementing same-sex classrooms or same-sex what is the word I'm looking for? Same-sex syllabuses can be actually quite costly. So if you're a school that's planning to trial having same-sex classrooms, you can't just simply split boys and girls into 2 different classrooms. The teacher has to go through a rigorous amount of professional development, which is at the cost of the school board. And in fact, in Newport Middle School in Newport, Kentucky, and Eagle Rock Junior High in Idaho Falls, They actually discontinued using this trial after just 12 months.
Okay, I have to stop it there.
Okay.
4 minutes. So,
Actually, I've got more.
okay.
Alright, so through my research, I found that the University of Pennsylvania in October of 2012 went to Seoul, South Korea to perform a study that when in South Korea, when you are put into the education program, you are randomly selected and put into either a co-ed classroom or a single-sex classroom. And they found that the graduates from the same-sex classroom were more likely to attend a 4-year college program, and they also found that Korean and English test scores were above average, had an above average increase when from the single-sex classrooms. And also, I feel like in single-sex classrooms, there's less likely to be instances of physical or sexual assault between male and female. 66% of female sexual assault victims are under the age of 24. And in a 1993 survey, national survey, they surveyed all women, and 29% of all women in college and universities were victims of sexual assault.
Okay. For gender stereotypes, other advocates say that single-sex education has been shown to broaden students' horizons and encourage them to explore their own strengths and interests without feeling constrained by gender stereotypes. A test in 2003 University of Virginia study led by educational psychologist Abigail, PhD, said, for example, found that boys who attend single-sex schools were more than twice as likely to pursue interests in subjects such as arts, music, drama, and foreign languages compared with boys of comparable ability who attend co-ed schools. And then the learning difference, studies say that boys in single-gender classrooms are more successful in school and more likely to pursue a wide range of interests and activities, according to the NEA. And then, yeah, that's all. Yeah.
So whoever who would like to speak first, yeah, can put their hand up. Okay, Meagan, please go ahead.
Okay, so the financial implications for institutions that need to train their teachers in different professional development on how to create a syllabus and maintain a classroom, which is same-sex gender, can actually be quite costly. 2 schools, one in Kentucky and one in Idaho, abandoned the single-sex classroom trial after just 12 months because they saw there were no significant improvements in grades or test scores. And at the Newport Middle School, discipline referrals actually skyrocketed for the teacher that was teaching the all-boys classroom. She had been teaching for 14 years, and she said that she wrote out 95% more boys after they were concentrated in a class after 12 months than she did the entire previous year with the co-educational classroom.
Well, they found at single-sex schools or classrooms that they break, like Renata said, they break down gender role barriers, and they've actually found it less likely that boys will be bullied in certain situations, I guess. But they're less likely to be bullied and more likely to take part in arts, music, and poetry because they don't have to worry about what the women are thinking around them. And they've also found that females get more competitive and partake in more like male stereotypical things like gym and things like that because they don't have the feeling of feeling like a tomboy. They don't have to worry about what boys think. So they tend to get more competitive.
Kim.
There was a study done in Pennsylvania amongst preschoolers. Younger children are generally more accepting and they don't really have the stereotypes that most older children have. They set up 2 different classrooms where one classroom they avoided any use of gender stereotypes, any terms that would swayed children's opinion to one side, and they set up another classroom in which it was all girls can be quieter than boys can, boys are more active. They very much stereotyped it. They found that when there was no response, like there was no change in behavior from the students that were in the classroom with no gender discrimination at all, or stereotyping, sorry. And they found that there was, like they still played with boys, the girls played with boys played with the girls, etc., etc. They, but the ones that were grouped in single-sex stereotypes, they found that they were observed to play less with children of the opposite sex and show less interest in even talking to them and communicating with them.
In a Dominican University article posted in 2012, which is located in Miami, Florida, but their studies showed that men tended to have less competitive edges and would be more cooperative with each other. Like, once again, because the lack of need to impress females is there. That's kind of all I have for that one.
So I think the statistics that you've noted where males and females when separated actually do better in class probably has something to do with the affluence of their family. Generally, families that put their children into same-sex schools or same-sex classes have come from a more affluent background, so they've probably had a lot more opportunity to excel and be given resources to excel during their education or during their time as children. So I think in general, children that are going into same-sex schools already have more of an advantage educationally as opposed to those going into co-educational schools because they're public or non-fee paying.
Okay.
Oh,
Do you want to
I'll
go
take
for it?
this one. Okay, Chicago's Urban Prep Academy had statistics in 2006. Only 4% of a public all-male black high school could only read at grade level, but in May, 100% of the school's seniors have been accepted to four-year colleges or universities, with many on full academic scholarships. So I don't think it matters so much, like, family-wise, and like, yeah, I don't know, okay.
We'll say, we'll assume that, like, putting this in place instead of regular public school education where it is mixed, we'll say, for argument's sake, that we make it single-sex schools and classrooms everywhere. The idea of having families more involved in somebody's studies is a good thing, especially if something like that is increasing test scores. So that's an advantage.
Okay. Given the studies and statistics we've provided, same-sex classrooms overall break down gender role barriers and lead to more creative, productive, and successful students without the distraction of the opposite sex. Overall, there's an apparent benefit to classes that only contain one specific gender.
I'd like to reiterate the 4 points that we made today. So the financial implications for families and the institutions themselves are great in implementing same-sex or same-gender schooling and classrooms. Concentrated bullying among same-sex students is actually more prevalent. The lack of social development skills between the sexes is debilitating when they get out into the real world or go on to further postgraduate education. And there doesn't seem to be any real benefit for same-sex schools or classrooms. Don't you think that getting through school is hard enough without having to worry about whether or not you're going to be able to talk to your male counterpart at college or your male counterpart in an office environment? I feel like, or even starting a relationship, getting those social skills developed while you're in school is really important to build those lasting relationships in your life. I feel like kids have enough pressure on them these days without having to add another level of complexity to their already confused lives.